Everywhere GBS.
Good evening and welcome to The Insight. My name is Eugene Ching and I will be your host for tonight's edition of The Insight. Well, tonight we talk about taxes, economy, and the finance bill. We delve into our political, of course, and current affairs show, The Insight, and we try to delve deeply into one of the most unpopular topics currently, or popular, as you may like to refer to it, and that is actually the finance bill. And we know that it has got far-reaching implications and potential impact on the lives of ordinary citizens. This has sparked actually intense public scrutiny and debate. And of course, we have our esteemed panelists here with us who will actually delve deeply into these issues through their lenses. Of course, we believe that they actually bring wealth of knowledge and understanding to this cause and to this discourse. Well, my first guest, of course, on The Insight is Evans Irungu. Evans Irungu is Nyeri UDA Secretary General. And thank you so much, Evans Irungu, for joining us on The Insight tonight. We also have Olianga Kevin also joining us for yet another time, the Secretary General Conservative Roundtable. Two Secretary Generals from what I can see. But of course, we want to have the conversation around the finance bill is a conversation that is continuing. It is progressing. And we have had this conversation for now, for a long time now. But something quite interesting is that this is quite unprecedented. We have never had a conversation on economy, on the finance bill. People talking about economy, one-on-one, deeply, dissecting always how the finance bill is going to affect them after it has been passed, like it is happening currently. And actually, we look at during the campaign trail of President William Ruto, he said that we shall change the conversation. It shall no longer be about tribal politics, but it shall be about the economy. What do you make of this? Is it changing, or is this just happening? Is this just happening for a moment? Let me start with you, Evans.
Thanks so much, Eugene.
Mm-hmm.
So my name is Evans.
Yes.
Irungu. I am the Nyeri UDA Secretary General. Mm-hmm. And my first point, I actually wanted to start with that, that the conversation is changing. That for the first time in the Kenyan history, we are talking about economics, not just politics, not about social issues, but also economic issues, which are actually a very strong pillar in our society levels. And one thing about UDA, we made promises, which promises we really want to keep, and we are planning to keep, and we must keep eventually. And all that time, our party leader, our president, His Excellency William Samoei Ruto, all that time, he was very sure about what he wanted to achieve. We went to all the way, even before the time that we founded the party on December 2020. After finding the party, we went down to our people. We asked them what they really wanted.
Yes.
They gave us our views. And after they gave all the opinions and all the views and everything that they really wanted to have, we sat down. We came with a roadmap. And after we got the roadmap, we came back and presented to the people after launching the manifesto. Now, the only thing that we are doing currently, we are building the structures to achieve the things that we promised our people. So yes, the conversation is changing. People are actually getting interested on what's happening, and I can tell you for sure, we are heading the right way.
Let me just act as the devil's advocate for a moment. Are they getting to be more interested because now more than ever things are getting more tougher than that they only see that there is need to delve into matters economy deeply and leave other issues, is it positive or is it negative from your perspective?
It's very positive. Because for one, it cannot be negative if initially no one was interested. Eventually, there was a time in Rome, before the football matches came. The football matches came as a result when the Senate of the Roman Republic, they wanted to pass bills without the opposition of the opposition of the multitude. So what did they do? They started gladiator games, so that people can just go and watch while they are in the Senate passing laws and bills that actually Rome is one of the oldest republic country that we have, because and now the president, instead of doing something like that, pushing bills, pushing acts that the people don't know about, currently people are participating. People are talking about it. That's the only conversation that is going on. So that's something I'm actually talking about, and I'm saying, like, it's a very positive thing that we are doing. And there's nothing hard actually. It's we actually just trying to get from the bottom going up.
Okay.
Yes.
Olihanga.
Yes.
The conversation is shifting.
I think on my side, we've been talking for a very long time. I don't think it's the right time to tell Kenyans that we should shift the conversation. I think the conversation has been too long. To an extent that the only thing that Kenyans have to think about is to get to know how their money is being spent. Because otherwise, with the current administration, and of course, our esteemed Secretary General of Nyeri giving us a history lesson from Rome, and not a clear-cut program on how they are going to spend our money, we are running into a situation where we are going to be a slave of debt. You get?
Okay. Yes.
To my point is one, that we've been having a conversation of finance bill. And the way MPs are being intimidated, being threatened, and being whipped in a manner that we've never seen in this country, there's a likelihood that it's going to pass. So the question is, when it passes, of course there are certain elements that will go to court, the element like the housing levy, which was shut down during the Uhuru time, it will be shut down again. But generally on the finance bill, personally I want to focus on the expenditure and on the implementation. I'll give you an example of why I'm worried on how our money is being spent. When you give the presidency office 4 times what you are giving the youth, 65% of this population, when youth are being given 3.9 billion against the presidency around 12 billion.
We will get into the details, kindly, of course, maybe later on into the conversation. But of course, you were talking about passing the bills. And of course, you talked about, you gave an example of Rome, whereby we had seen some others, actually the Senate, making games, gladiator you call them, so that they can pass the bills. What is the difference between this government, which is creating games to pass bills, and the government that does not want to listen to the people, the masses, when they speak, when they air their voices and say that we do not want this, or it is not the right time? What is the difference?
Okay, the difference is that ours, it has been a process. It is not something like we woke up one day and decided to actually put in our in the bill. If you go to our manifesto, for example, I'll just mention one issue. We promised to build 250,000 houses each year. And now, when we were asking our people, do you really want those 250,000 houses per year? And they all said yes. And it's like there was a joke going around during some time back during when our retired president, our Excellency Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, there was a time he appointed Major General Bandi, and Bandi was really working in Nairobi, and people were complaining, and then there was a joke going on around, like, how many people want change? And everyone wants change, true. But who wants to change? No one.
Okay.
You see?
Okay. Olianga,
Yes.
you see, there's this conversation that the Azimio side do not actually want the government to progress generally. And it is a question that actually they're asking, that why don't you allow this finance bill to go to the parliament and then make the amendments when it is already at the parliament? And maybe this begs the question that maybe are there alternative approaches or amendments that actually could be considered to address concerns raised by the public while even still achieving the desired financial goals within the context of this finance bill?
Quick one. I believe every administration, just like UD administration, has the opportunity to come up with their own policy framework on how they want to implement their issues and how they want to go about their agenda. Nobody's stopping them from achieving that. They have majority in parliament. I think they have also a leeway in the Senate, so they cannot pretend to be playing victim. You get? The question we are discussing today as Kenyans, and by the way, personally, I'll say I don't represent Azimio for that much, but I'll talk as a Kenyan youth, as a normal mwananchi. What we are asking ourselves is, why are we being forced by certain illegality? Because there are certain issues that are totally illegal. We've discussed them, we've had a session to discuss them, I don't want to over-repeat them. The issue of housing levy is not that Kenyans don't want houses, but the structure. The Secretary General here from Nyeri is saying that Kenyans will be given 250,000 houses. My friend, Kenyans are 50 million. When you're giving 250,000 houses, how will you prioritize?
Okay.
Will you start from Busia or from Mombasa? So what will be your priority? Who will you be selecting? Where will you be building it? Will you be buying land in Busia, in Kisumu, or in Nyeri? Those are the questions Kenya want to get clear cut on. Another thing, you're saying that we give you money. We don't mind. Why don't you come up with an infrastructure bond? But I'm happy that in the same budget proposal and their budget statement, they're saying that out of the 780 billion, they are going to borrow nearly 600 billion from the local market. And that's a good thing, because when you're borrowing in Kenya shilling, you're refunding it in Kenya shilling, it's cheaper for the government. And therefore, that strengthens the economy. So we are not saying that here we are doomsday and we are against the government and the administration and what they are planning to do. We are just correcting them. You know, we have a way of being defensive, that if you're being corrected, you find it like somebody is against you. Nobody's against His Excellency the President. Nobody's against UDA administration. In fact, once the election is carried out and is done, it's time to grow our economy and to build the country. But which direction are we taking? That's the question Kenyans are asking. On my point, when you said you don't want us to go into detail immediately, I think it's high time we highlight some of these things that we find should be relooked into. Because, for example, why will you give, and I was giving an example, the entire youth ministry, with the population of youth that we are looking into grow, in so many sectors, the budget allocation is around 4 billion. And the presidency, an office, which I don't think why it should be given 12 billion in the first place, is nearly bigger than even the Department of Irrigation, when we have 1.3 million land to be irrigated, so that we can fight one thing, food security. We've been singing, by the food security song for a long time. We said we are going to achieve it in 2015 under the Millennium Development Goals. We never achieved it. We say we'll achieve it in 2030 under Vision 2030. It never happened. They said 2022 under Agenda 4. It never happened. Now we are talking about African Union 2063. So will we sing the song that UDA want us to sing, or will we go into matters of doing things that are right for our nation.
Okay.
That's the question.
Sir, let me just come to you, Irungu. He has talked about quite a number of issues, but let me just pick one of them for a start. He talked about loans. Loans has been actually, the debt has been quite an issue in the structure, the government structure of Kenya for quite a long time. Talk about debt, and actually it has raised controversies. The other time, if you are keen, there's the Senator of Bungoma, Mtata.
Yes.
Is it Bungoma? Busia. Yes, was saying that Kenya has actually paid its debts, and actually there are certain amounts of money actually that is being pocketed by some people. We are not certain of these allegations, but generally from UDA, how do they take loans? How do they take this issue, bearing that they actually had said that they will not borrow more? We have seen them borrowing, but generally in this finance bill, what are the propositions particularly on loans, and what does it portend to the future of this country? Yes.
Okay, thank you, Eugene. I think we are confining ourselves to locally, and I can tell you for free, there are 3 things that are actually being talked internationally. The first one is about the free exchange, the free continental exchange area. And also the second thing, it's about regional integration. And the third thing, which is the very most important and our president is really focusing on, it's on fundraising locally, saving locally, so that even making sure that the taxes, currently our tax is around 14 to around 15% currently against the GDP. But when you go to our peers, like you go to South Africa, go to Tunisia, their GDP is between 23 to 27%, 28% of the GDP. That's the money that they are using. Now, going to the issue of loan, we are having loans on the global financial architecture in percentage that we cannot afford. You go to like to IMF or to the World Bank, we are getting loans between 10% to 12%, 13%. That's so much we cannot afford such kind of interest, and that's why we are switching from the global architecture market or market, yes, to come locally, to raise our taxes, to save from our spending, and also to ring fence where the loopholes have been where the money is going is getting lost, so that we can be able to afford our own expenditure. We can also afford to pay our workers, and according to the finance bill, it will raise more than 600 billion by the time it's being implemented. Now, that kind of money will enable us, and that's why our president decided to reduce or to walk away from the IMF. The IMF wanted us to borrow more, so that they can cash in more. But now, our president, when he said when he went there, on another issue before I finish, my good friend here has mentioned about the president's budget being big. I can tell you for free, our president is not sleeping. He is everywhere. He is trying to bring regional integration. He is working on uniting Sudan currently because of regional stability. He is going to the free exchange area, working with the partners, so that we can be able to have, we can be able to do fundraising amongst ourselves as a region, even with the East African Commission. So when the budget is up, it's not because he is missing, or he is misusing the money. It's because he is using he needs that kind of capacity to be able to keep the promises that we made, and also to make sure that Kenya progresses. Yes.
Let me ask you, Oleanga, this, because you look at the finance bill, it means that it must reflect the priorities and the values of that specific government. We look at Kenya Kwanza, how they were campaigning and all now look at what is now being reflected in the finance bill, is it in line generally with their overall economic and social agenda for this country, even from the onset of things?
I think that's a good question, and thank you for that, because even from the Secretary General, my brother from Nyeri, is giving us a good analogy of how our president is working so hard in a direction that is not clear to Kenya. It's like going around the room. He sweats, he doesn't sleep, but does it add value to Kenya? To me, it's very simple. I think you ask a very important question of how can we manage our debt? You get. I think I did not get a proper explanation from my UDA friend, because at the end of the day, the reason why our budget is growing is exactly what the president is doing now. The wage bill is too high. Yes, the wage bill is too high. When we are looking at a budget of 3.67 trillion, actually 2.47 trillion, nearly 70% of that money is going to pay the wage bill of employees of the government, of the parliament, and of judiciary. You get? So when you're looking at a wage bill that is basically going to the entire 70% of budget, before you start even paying debt, the entire wage bill is 70% of our GDP, paying only the three arms of the government, that is the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. Then we are in a dangerous country, and we see a president that every day is employing, duplicating roles, and instead of us doing an audit of how many employees we have, vis-a-vis the roles within the government, and streamlining, allow me to give me time a bit, and streamlining what is exactly ailing us in terms of wage bill. Because we cannot have a country where 70% of our budget or our GDP is basically going to pay salary. To you, another question. You asked a very important question. Is the budget or the finance bill in line with the agenda of our nation? 65% of our GDP is supported by agriculture. When you give a budget of 3% to agriculture, my friend, against Maputo declaration of 10%, which Kenyans signed in 2021, declaring that they'll invest 10% towards agriculture so that we can fight this hunger. You get? So that question alone, I don't know whether my brother will answer it. Is it in line when you give agriculture 3% of the total budget to agriculture? You get? It is not. You get? Because this mirage of fighting hunger will never be there, will never be solved. Every day we will be seeking funds and help from the international to feed our own people. When we have a budget of 3.7 trillion, 3.67, shy of 3.7 trillion. You get? Another thing, we have, like I said, 1.3 million land to be irrigated. The problem, I think is something I raised earlier. The problem in this country, the land is fertile. What farmers lack is water. You get? 1.3 million land need to be irrigated. The president promised in Mashujaa Day to build 100 dams. We've seen how dams have been built in Kenya. Money is given. Private companies are given money. They build nothing. They only go there, slash some weeds. They go to their countries with that money, and nothing is delivered to the economy. Why don't we use our military to build this dam so that we can have a proper irrigation in our country? Okay,
we're coming back. Of course, I'll give you a chance to answer to that. What is actually saying about the Kenya Kwanza and generally what the finance bill portends to the country generally. Yes, this is the taxes, economy, and of course the finance bill. We're still here discussing, of course, with these two gentlemen. To the one before is our SMS line at GBS TV Africa. We are continuing with this conversation here on The Insight. We're taking a very quick short break, but we'll be right back.
you. I hope you are doing well wherever you are. As sisi hapa tuko, we are good. We are fresh as.
What is your problem? Mimi nataka kujua.
Eric,
Kenya unaendelea.
Now look, I'm a fan.
Kwa nini?
I'm a fan. Whatever he's doing, it's working because people are constantly talking about it. It doesn't matter whether he's fought somebody at a radio station or he's wearing boots that look like, I don't even know.
They look like emojis.
Rick, why are you so quiet? Rick, hataki kuongelea hii mambo. What is it? What is happening?
No. For the sake of other people, just be decent, kiasi. Like it's not. We're not policing your body. It's just
Stuff happens.
consider. Yeah, stuff happens, but just take your.
So
life,
what men wako thick thighs. Na tukiwa wadogo walikuwa wanatuita kanono. Kanakula sana. Hisi ninavyofanyia.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Those people, you find a 10-year-old there. Fade.
I want to start by telling you a story about a young girl who was in a secondary school in a rural part of Kenya. What is it that you know that you have that God has given it to you? What is it that you know that you want to contribute to society in? What is it that you are so scared to tell people around you because you know they're going to frown on you? But you, I know, imagine it during your time, your free time, your dream time. Dream those dreams, young people. See those visions, young people. Be who God has created you to be.
Even you as moving around the world and meeting people, it creates a new vision that other people cannot be able to understand until they enter into that position where they can be able to see the world in a different platform.
Young people, we should allow young people to tell us something that at our deep core, it scares us. Now, in the past, it sounded strange. COVID-19 came. Guess what? It scared us to our deep core. Yeah.
Everywhere, GBS.
Welcome back to this live broadcast. My name is Eugene Kwach, and of course, we still continue with this conversation on the finance bill, economy, and of course, the taxes. We also have another gentleman joining us on this conversation, Teddy Mushiri, a youth leader of UDA. And of course, thank you so much for joining us on the Insight, Mushiri. Mushiri, we're talking about the economy generally through the lenses of the finance bill 2023. And maybe you can give us your opinion, because we have been having this conversation here. And one thing that actually Olianga has said clearly, that actually was to lead us to our next question, and was also mentioned by former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, some of the ways through which the government can help in curbing the issues that is actually within, and that is stopping duplicating of county roles. For example, there are certain roles that are within the county that have been given by the county, are to be done by the county, but of course the national government still spends some huge amount of money in there, like health. We talked about zero-based budgeting, cut down on spending and live frugally, sealing corruption loopholes and curbing wastage in the executive, then reducing the size of the executive, and finally to withdraw the finance bill. But even if you leave the last point, the ones that we have mentioned, are they really, from where you sit, do you feel that they're actually issues that should be looked into?
Yes, actually, I would say yes. First, actually, thank you so much for having me today. Yes, so I'll begin by saying some point which you have raised, they make a lot of sense. On the corruption issues and the spending and everything, there are things which should be there are things which the government should look at, even if as they push for the finance bill, and as we have witnessed things like corruption, the president has been very categorical that he won't be allowing the corruption to be taking place in his regime, and that's why you saw what he did in KEMSA and whatever he is doing in his government at the moment. Secondly, about the finance bill, we have to understand when the president was seeking for votes from the electorate, he went with his manifesto, and he went to the people and he told them, this is what I'm going to do. And in the UDA manifesto, there were some 5 pillars. One was agriculture, the other was the digital economy, there was MSC, and there was housing and settlement. Yes. So when we say about, actually the thing that has raised a lot of, has brought all attention, if you ask everybody about the finance bill, you're speaking about the 3%. And we have to understand one thing. We have to understand that when the government, when the UDA government outside and said that they are going to build houses, they meant what they were saying. And we have to stop this politics of conmanship where people go and say things and they don't do. Right now the government is deliberate and it's doing it by action. And we have to look at this thing of housing. It is a two-pronged outcome in the sense that we are not just creating houses for people who don't have houses or who cannot afford houses. We are also creating employment. And I had most of the guys outside are saying, okay, now people went to school, hii kazi ya mjengo na chulikata. No. Remember, even in building the architectures have to go to school, the engineers, they are manufacturers. So this housing project is going to solve is going to have different outcomes that is going to affect the economy of the day. To finish up, I'll say this. At the moment, the poor, the rich and the poor, the gap is becoming huge. And the only way we can reduce this gap is to make sure that those who we call have-nots at least have a place to call their own. Because as we speak at the moment, in this country, when we count about, when we do a calculation on a household, when you calculate the money they spend on rent and they spend on food, it accounts to 75% of the total of the total expenditure of one household. So we have to sit down and as a government, if we want these people to have money in their pocket, what do? We have to reduce their expenditure, and that's what we are doing at the moment, and that's what we are pushing, and we would urge our distractors, or for lack of a better word, to support us and say that these youths who are outside there, they have to get jobs. Yes, I know they'll feel disappointed because they won't. My president was very clear. He said in the next few years, we won't be having youths to call for mandamano, to call throwing stone, because people will be very busy. This is what he meant by creating jobs. Thank you.
Olianga will come back to you so that you can maybe talk about this point before I come back to you. And this was about these issues that actually were raised by Raila. And we have mentioned some of them as about stopping duplication of roles, of county roles, then zero-based budgeting, cutting down on spending and living frugally, sealing corruption loopholes, and then reducing the size of executive as some of the ways to solve the economic issues that are currently haunting Kenya. That is Raila Odinga. Do you think these are really, these issues, when they are looked deeply, then they can help Kenya in big time than what is now happening with Kenya Kwanza right now?
I think I'll shoot straight to the point. UDA leadership is like a chicken without an head that is running up and down without a clear direction. Because I'll be very straight to this. We don't need textbook explanation into simple issues that can be sorted in our country. For example, Ndi himself has gone against so many leadership of UDA by saying that actually there's wastage. What do we mean by wastage? And I gave you an example, that we've increased our budget to 3.67 trillion. This is money we want to spend in this country. But if this is the expenditure we want to spend, and already we've taken 70% of it to give it like salary, paying the government employees, 30% that is remaining, we are not sure that is even it will go to development. We are not even sure whether the 700 billion, they'll be able to successfully borrow it.
Why
You
not
get
sure?
In short, the development agenda is in limbo. There will be no sufficient money in this current budget. Remember, KRA can only raise 1.7 trillion. We are saying now KRA should raise 2.4. Now that 2.4 trillion that KRA is supposed to raise will go into paying employees, meaning UD is only supervising and seriously mandating KRA to raise money so that they pay government employee. Now they are saying to do development, don't worry, we will borrow it. Where we will tell Kenyans to give us 600 billion, and we'll tell foreign nations or other development agencies to give us 170 billion, total 780 billion to go towards your development. So in short, our development is in question. But come back. Here, we are talking about simple things. Number one, if you are number one pillar, and I love the two gentlemen defending the government seriously, saying that their number one pillar is agriculture. And it's true, agriculture contributes 65% of our GDP. In the budget proposal, the budget policy statement, it has been awarded only 3%. You get? So how will you turn around anger? How will you turn around agriculture that has been contracted for the last 10 years so that you can provide sufficient food and implement only one element of what we call the right, the economic and social right in our constitution, Article 43. How will you implement secure food security in this country when budget is at 3%, when the same government in 2021 signed Maputo Declaration that they'll be doing 10%. And I'll give you an example. Ethiopia is doing 10%. Now the GDP of Ethiopia is growing faster than Kenya. Economy is expanding more than Kenya. My second point, they are talking about building 100 dams. And I think I was on point when we took a break. That was Mashujaa Day, promise to Kenyans. We'll do 100 dams so that we can do irrigation. What I keep wondering, if China can use their military to build dams in their country and build irrigation system, so that now farmers can form what we call irrigation water use association and use the water to do farming. In Kenya, we are saying we are giving military 156 billion. The only thing they're doing is fighting Somali, war that is being financed by European Union. So my wonder is, what is the purpose of military in this country if our number one enemy, which is food insecurity, cannot be dealt with? So in short, from the two gentlemen, and I cannot blame them, the confusion is clear from even the talk. There is no clear direction on a development agenda, and that is a sure thing.
I'll give you a chance for a point of reply, but generally what comes out from these conversations, the back and forth between those people who support the Kenya Kwanza government and even the finance bill, and those that do not support it, is the issue of the distrust. Distrust comes out. And this is because of the past experiences with the leaders of Kenya Kwanza, with the Kenyans generally. And you must also understand, and you of course know, that there are certain promises that have been made that have not seen light, even to date. And this issue of distrust are making Kenyans question that how will this happen? And now the question of housing, because CBC itself, we know that it's still facing a lot of issues. The CBC contractors actually have not yet been paid. And now the question someone will ask, if those people were not paid, then the other people who have not been paid, contractors, how will those people who are actually the contractors of these houses be paid? Because there is cash crunch. There's several issues pertaining money within this government. And there are a lot of other issues to do with the distrust. So how will this government that is distrusted now undertake all these things and be trusted?
Okay, thank you. I will start with the trust issue. This whole week, we have been at the United Nations Assembly discussing about sustainable urban planning and also cities. And one thing that we came about, we actually talked about more oftenly is about making sure that there's sustainability in everything that we are doing. Our president, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, is very committed. And I can tell you one thing for sure, is that there has been mistrust, not just from the Kenya Kwanza leaders, all the way even before independence. We have had so many leaders who come into office and promise things that they can't actually deliver. And that's why you are seeing that our leadership is first focused on having a structure on there. I'll talk as a lawyer. I'm a lawyer by profession. And I can tell you one thing for sure. There is nothing that can work without a structure. And the first thing that the UDA leadership has done is to create a structure. And that structure, that's why you can see that we are now, if you go into the Kenya Constitution, we have the consolidated fund, which has been given, where the money, all the money that we raise from revenue is actually taken. Now, you go to the finance, you go to the finance bill. The finance bill gives power to the house levy. And the house levy will give power to a commission that will oversee the implementation of that money. Now, we cannot have a commission if you don't have a structure. And in order to make sure that that money is actually goes to our architects, our engineers, our manufacturers, first we have now to get such a system so that when that cash goes in there, it can be ring-fenced. The first thing actually it's ring-fencing it.
Okay.
It has been ring-fenced by the finance bill. But now we are just looking at the figures only.
Okay.
We are not trying to understand like the whole flow of the finance bill.
Okay, how will Kenyans solve the issue of distrust to their leaders? Some Kenyans feel that this government is not listening to them. Do you get the point?
Yes.
There are those people who are sitting somewhere and saying that, no, we are not being, this government is not for the people. It is not actually taking in what we want. It is what they want. There are a lot of distrust from the experiences. The president says this, it will happen after this, it has not happened. You get it. There are also other issues that they look at it, and even the leaders themselves, when they have asked at several occasions that after passing the finance bill, will life be better? That is a question that they fail to answer.
Okay.
What happens?
Okay, I will ask Kenyans one thing. Give us time. We are committed to the approach. We are committed to the journey, but we are trying to be flexible with the approach. Committed to the cause, but flexible to the approach. Now, we have so much focused on our past that we are not focusing on our future, on our present, on where we are. We need to appreciate the steps we have made.
Okay, I get your point.
Yes.
Let me come to Teddy. And Teddy, you talked about housing. You talked about housing, and you said that this government is so deliberate and intentional on undertaking what they actually promised Kenyans, and that is on housing. And there's a very pertinent question that Kenyans are asking on even the approach of conducting or coming up with this housing, how it will happen. Because number one, when something is compulsory, then it means that it is a tax. Why is it that it is so compulsory that the government has to deduct such an amount? And of course, they have given examples of where this housing has actually done well. Giving an example of Singapore. You look at the structure, the government structure of Singapore is quite dictatorial. And you look at even the land that they have. The land was owned by the government. And this begs the question on how this government will actually come up with this housing perfectly well. Isn't it at all order, bearing that we are even still struggling with very basic issues like corruption?
Corruption, yeah. Thank you very much. First, I would say on this issue, on the way it will be structured, first we have to understand that like Singapore, the land that the government is giving to developers is government owned. It is in the land where the council houses used to be. That's why they are giving the developers so they can uptake the project. On the issue of how it's going to be done and the taxes, my brother, we live in this country. The people who get government jobs are very few people. And the people who get that government job does not mean they are qualified than the people who are straight from the university. So I think it is a very small it's a very small responsibility for them from their part, and a moral responsibility to say it's also a moral responsibility for them to take up the 3%, and support people who are not employed so they can get a decent house. Again, the 3% which we are talking about will be a guarantee to the investors from the government that if there's no off-taking, the government can take up the houses. You understand? So it is just a guarantee, it's not to pay up the houses. The other thing, as a reader, you have to think and be futuristic with your policies. You understand?
Okay.
In 2013, projectional 60%, there will be 60% of all citizens in Kenya will be living in urban centers. So as a responsible leader, you have to make plans and you have to make their decisions. And also, we have to sit here and educate our people at home. In the Rust regime, and I always mention this, and you always say, let's talk about what's happening right now. In the Rust regime, they focused on what we call on the roads and everything, the expressway, which their costs, they are cost in extensive project. But right now, the government is focusing on labor project.
Mishiri, I asked you about when you juxtapose the situation between that which is in Singapore and Kenya.
That's what I'm doing. I'm taking you there.
How will it be easy?
I'm taking you there. First, I began by saying the land like Singapore, the land that the government is giving the investors is a land which was owned by the Kenya Housing, the government. You understand? Where the county councils houses were. Secondly, I'll say this. Like Singapore, right now we are saying there is no jobs in the country. And like Singapore, if you approach what Singapore did, right now, as we speak at the moment, Singapore, 80% of all people in Singapore own houses. You understand? It was a very deliberate action by the government. What that means is, if in this country we make sure we reach to 60 or 70% people having their houses, you have your houses, you have your houses, you have your houses. When I get my 40 million, when I go and do business, I get my 40 million. I won't go and think of building a flat like everybody thinks. I'll go and think of putting up an industry to employ more people. You understand? So let me just finish up. I'll go and think of putting up an industry. You understand? Because now, this housing thing, because you cut me off, I have to finish up this point. It is a labor-intensive project where we are employing more youths who are at home. Rather than having a project of building roads where you're just doing precast and unazibeba with all the machines and putting them up, and the money is going to China. So we have to be very sober in this discussion. And I have to answer my brother. He had said that at the moment Kenya Kwanza is just like a chicken without head. But I think he meant legs because they were cut. We have a lot of loans. They left us with a lot of loans, a lot of baggage. But as we can see, the president and his team, they are very deliberate in lifting all Kenyans from the pit where they were left.
Lianga.
I think you've been generous to my two gentlemen from UDA. Number one, let me clarify that I don't talk on behalf of Azimio. I'm a member of People's Trust Party, and I'm the Secretary General of Conservative Roundtable. I speak on behalf of youth. Straight to the point, I think it's naive to start comparing ourselves with Singapore when people who are going without 1 meal in a day is 1 million in Kenya, rising. Those who cannot go without 2 meals Those who are going without 2 meals in a day are now rising to 2.5 million. First, let's feed our people before we give them the propaganda of distributing houses. I also raised a very critical point. My brothers keep on saying that they have taken 1 year to build structure. I don't know which structure they are building. If there is a country that is rich in policy and blueprint and structure, is Kenya. For example, the president is busy coming up with the, what you call the Hustler Fund. When already we have Uwezo Fund, we have Youth Fund, we already have Women Enterprise Fund. Why do we need to create so many funds when we don't even know what Sport Fund has contributed to this country? 5 years down the line, it was supposed to collect money and build talent academies in every county. None has been built. So what Kenya needs is service delivery, not creation of structures that had already been created. Don't spend 1 year telling a story about structure. When we have structure in the country, there's no vacuum in this country. Number two, my brother, you asked a very pregnant issue of priority. You asked whether this finance bill, if it passes as it is, and I know it will pass, because members of parliament have been threatened to an extent that they don't think. So it will pass. I can guarantee you. The question is, what next? Because the politics that have been played by UDA and the leadership of the UDA is us versus them. You, and my brother is repeating it here. You look at them, they keep referring to former regime as if there is an election to be, there's a contest for another election this year. There's no contest for an election. What they need to tell Kenyans is now what they can do. Election is over. And but the former regime is not participating in any election. Probably it will be a different party in the future. That is 4 years from now. So, my point is clear. Number one, let us feed our people. Let's review the budget that has been allocated for agriculture from 3% to at least even 10%, so that we can match our neighbors. Ethiopia that is passing us. Very soon Rwanda will be beyond what Kenya is. Secondly, let us focus on projects that are productive, that can be implemented immediately. Somebody is talking about building 250,000 houses. We are 50 million Kenyans. Where will you start? And I asked that question. Will they buy land in Mombasa? Will they buy it in Nyeri, Busia, or Eldoret? Who will they pick? Will it be son of Jomo, or will it be me here from Busia, Marachi, jobless corner? The criteria of how you distribute the houses. Number two, they keep saying that Kenyans need to contribute money so that it can create job for the youth. So in simple terms, the government is putting us in a situation where if the housing levy does not go through, therefore youth will not have a job. So are we saying that only housing levy will give job to the youth to an extent that if court shoot it down, which I know it will, then we don't have job for the youth? That is a lie, and that is propaganda.
Okay.
Because this housing levy, just give me time, these two gentlemen took a lot of time. The housing levy, as the way it's structured, it is narrowed to only people with payslip, which is very dangerous. If you are genuine, you want Kenyans to own homes, then spread the contribution to even in the informal sector. The reason why they cannot do that, they don't have data. Number two, they are not genuine in refunding this money, which they are saying they'll refund after 7 years if you don't need a home. How will they refund it if the only way you can refund money back is through treasury? What do I mean? They have failed in building a structure for this thing they call levy, the housing levy fund. Because if you are genuine, you want to refund it, come up with an infrastructure bond. Let every Kenyan, not only those with payslip, contribute money. The amount will increase. You get. And if you feel that those who have contributed, they consider their money investment and they are earning an interest, they don't want to own a home, they'll simply go for their money plus the interest. But this fund we are creating is not an infrastructure bond. So if tomorrow I want my money, will I walk to Treasury Department? Will I walk to the presidency? Okay. Or will I walk to the super minister? You call them super minister.
I think you are letting our brother here misinform the masses out here.
Okay.
With so many things, I don't know where I'll begin, but I'll start with the issue of land. Brother, I think if you take time and you go through the way the UDA has proposed is going to take this process of housing, you will understand that, and I've repeated here, so at least you'll be keen a little bit. No, let me finish up. The house, this project of housing, the matter of land, the government is going to give up the land. Like here, there is these houses for Jericho.
So where will you start?
No, that's what I'm saying. Okay. There is these houses for Jericho. You understand? In every county, there are government houses for civil servant houses. You understand? There were some bungalows. Right now, they are saying they are going to build mass buildings. You understand? The flats, apartments. So they can fit they can be cheap and they become accessible to everybody. The second thing, which my brother here said, he has said about the fund, about it should be a bond and everything. But I want to educate him, and I think after a year he'll go and educate himself again. The 3% is supposed to be a guarantee, which is going to be guaranteeing the investors. In case the houses are not they are not taken up by the masses, the government can guarantee them that there can be some off-taking from the government. Second thing, about the structures, I don't know which structures are you talking about, the structures of building the houses or the structures of correcting the 3%? Because as we speak, there's no 3 weeks that passes without seeing the president opening housing projects in every county. Personally, I'm from Kirinyaga, not Nairobi. The other day is in Langata, South Sea. I'm from Kirinyaga. Kirinyaga, there is already uptake of the housing project. Thirdly, which I want to inform you, and I hope you are getting whatever I'm saying. This housing project will be devolved to counties. You understand? So it will be more of a county projects. You understand?
Will devolve construction or distribution?
No. I'm saying because county are the devolved units who have the lands of the former civil servants who are in the national government. You understand?
So what are you devolving? That's what I'm asking. Okay.
I'm saying the activities are, yes.
But let me just I'm being told that it is now our time is up.
Yes.
And we are to give our parting shots.
Yes.
But actually, as we give our parting shots, maybe you can tell us the real motivation behind this finance bill. Does it align itself to the broader national and international economic context? Why? Why is this finance bill?
Exactly. Before, when we started, I told you about the current topics, discussions that are going on. Number one being the free continental exchange area. The second one being the regional integration. And the third one being domestic resource mobilization, so that we can get away from these funds, these loans. Now, we cannot be integrated regionally if our taxes we are still paying at 14%, when our peers like like South Africa and Tunisia, they are paying between 23 and 25%.
Okay.
Now, before the Singapore, because we are also focusing on Nigeria, is doing this housing, and it's very successful. Nigeria, go to like we have the OECD countries. Those OECD countries, you can check like the way they are actually working out their economy through their tax, which it's actually tax against the GDP. And now we cannot go and borrow money to pay our workers. We have to be sustainable, and that's why you are raising our budget we're telling KRA to focus on the 2.4 trillion, so that it can pay our workers. We can be able to get money for funding our infrastructure.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mushiri, your parting shot in 2 seconds.
Okay, first I want to tell people outside there that government and the leadership of President Ruto is very dedicated and deliberate in fulfilling his promises, which he promised the people. One of them is in housing, and as they have seen, the project have started, and they'll be going on. And they should inform themselves and avoid consuming all this propaganda from our distractors. And remember, anybody who is complaining about the housing, either he is a landlord, only somebody who is earning a salary, a big salary. And at home, let's remember, people who are not employed are the majority. And we have to take care of the majority, the people who go bottom. The president said his government will be from bottom up. And that's why he said before he start doing all the other activities, let's make sure the person on the ground, that mamamboga, that boda, at least he can own his property with his name. And at least, let me finish up, at least he can have his home and his wife. Because now we have to be very open. As all of us are youth, there is a problem of even getting marriage. Because now, where do you start beginning marriage and you don't have a house? So even this thing will be very good to all the people outside there. So let us support it and avoid the propaganda from our distractors. And at least when they come with the propaganda, please take your time and inform them and tell them Kenya hakuna wajinga, wajinga warisha. Thank you.
Olianga.
I think it's clear that the government wamekuwa kituambia wanatenga pesa zenye wanatenga kwa hizo projects zenye nafaa wafanye. The projects are not there. So wametenga uongo mingi, imefika mahali sasa wametengwa na Wakenya. So they are desperate. The issue of intimidating Kenyans that if the housing levy does not pass, they will not have job. I'm hearing my brother from DA saying now youth will not even marry if there's no 3-house levy fund. Then those are intimidation and those are lies. Focus on feeding Kenyans. Do well in your budgeting for agriculture. Focus on using the military to build dams for irrigation. Stop giving it to PPP under the Act of 2021, where we've seen private company looting Kenyans' money. In short, invest wisely for Kenyans. Stop creating opportunity for looters. That is my advice to the administration.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for this conversation, for agreeing to my invite for this discussion, which was quite elaborate. Of course, as the panelists brought a vast wealth of knowledge. Each speaker, each panelist with his own school of thought, delving deeply into these issues that are currently thronging into the Kenyan space. And thank you so much for watching us here on The Insight. We come here every 7 p.m. To 8 p.m. Every Friday. And of course, my name is Eugene Ochieng Koach. I've been your host. On behalf of the team that has made this happen, we wish you a very good night. Very sana.
Everywhere GBS.
Sometimes we even get to learn new things. Like today, we're going to be learning about something called synthography. And if you're anything like me, you're going to be very interested in this because I didn't even know this was possible until I met this guy who I'm about to introduce you to.
There's quite a few, it's fascinating though.
And when I look at that, it looks so photorealistic. The first time I saw it, I imagined there was somebody standing with a camera behind this lady and doing that.
Inspiration for the art I make is